So video 3, and we're going to add layers 3 and 4, and you'll notice that I've put with patching, so I'll explain that. If you have a hairdryer to hand and you feel that that layer 1 and 2 is still a little bit wobbly, you can just dry it off. The beauty of this clay is it can be dried off really quickly. It won't crack, whereas usually clay would crack because you've got you've got heat shock. This is so robust, it doesn't really mind what you do to it. So all I'm doing is sort of sealing it off, making sure that it is sturdy, and you can see that I'm focusing the heat towards the bottom layer in particular. If that is sturdy and you carry on building on top, then you're more likely to have a straight cylinder. And obviously we're going for the skill, we're trying to make sure that these cylinders go upright. The first one I made too quickly, it became too heavy, and over the course of the day it just sagged at the bottom. So I learned that if we dry the bottom off, then we've got a sturdy base to carry on with. Try not to dry it out too much, but you'll get the feel for it. It's sturdy enough. It's quite warm in your hand when it's been dried. And now while I'm doing the top bit, it's malleable enough that I can still shape it slightly, and I'm using the ruler just as a guide to keep it as straight as I can. So just preparing for layer 3, making sure I rolled out the offcuts. I'm using my ruler again to get the width of the next layer. Again, I'm folding up the offcuts, so I will use those again. And I'm just adding a little bit of water now because I've dried it out with the hairdryer. You don't need to soak it with water. This is what children do. They tend to just kind of like just empty their sponges onto the top. But you'll end up with a really, really messy project. So just delicately wipe the top with water. You don't need very much at all. And again, I've pinched the end off because it seemed to be getting a bit dry. And I've started over the top exactly where the previous join was, and I'm just repeating exactly the same as I did before. I've just taken it off because it felt like it was too thick. Rolling it out again and placing it on the top. See how I turn it over when I roll it? It's really just so that it doesn't stick to the cloth. And because I re-rolled it, it needs straightening, so I'm cutting it again, making sure that I'm going to use those offcuts, add it to the pile. I wasn't quite happy with the thickness, obviously, so I've just gone back. Don't be afraid to go back and edit like you would a sentence. You're not happy with that, so you're going to go back and edit it. If you're not happy with the width, get it right now, because it'll affect the pot later. The thing with porcelain, if it's thin, we can see light through it. That's the beauty of porcelain. If it's too thick, we won't be able to see any light through it. And the purity of the porcelain is its beauty. Too thin, and obviously things start to fall apart. So again, I'm just going through the process of adding, pinching, straightening, using my ruler. Sometimes I stand and see it from bird's eye. Actually videoing it is helpful because I can see, now I'm narrating the video, I can see it from a different angle. The children want to rush this. They get quite impatient, and they start to pinch quite hard. They might start to pinch upwards as well, with an upward motion which stretches the clay. We don't want to stretch it. Just patting it down so that we've got a level to add the next layer to. And it's quite a mindful, meditative process, this. Just go slow, make sure that each one is sturdy. So here I'm slightly varying the way that I add the fourth strip. So we want uniform, but we also want sort of little quirky details. What I've done is I've pinched up the third layer, just pinched it up ever so slightly. I'm getting quite confident, you see. So I'm adding now the fourth strip on ever so slightly inside that pinched edge of the third, and I'm just flattening it out to create a different effect. So now you've mastered that, you can literally just carry on building like that. But I'm going to introduce another technique, which is called patching. So now you're confident, you can start to use layers of clay which don't quite match, and then you just literally infill using patches of clay. I wouldn't use too many patches in too many layers just because it weakens the structure a little bit, but you can play around with that look and you can draw on those patches. So here we have the finished middle section of our making project. Now all we have to do is consider the marks and make the top.